Okay, going live here. Audio looks good. Hello, everybody! Happy Memorial Day weekend. I hope you are having a really nice, easy weekend. I hope that everybody here was able to have a 3-day weekend. I took it a little easy, started late, but it's time for another Let's Build Citizen live stream, so let's get started. Okay, let me real quick put on my big face, make sure I don't have anything embarrassing hanging out on my screen, and indeed I did, so good thing I checked that. Great. Okay, now let me bring it back to the main. How y'all doing? I'm feeling nice and rested. And taking an easy day today, thus starting really late, but, it's Memorial Day, so, taking it easy is the whole idea. And I suppose the general idea is to give everybody honor the sacrifices that have been made for one another, so let's give a shout out of honor to folks who have helped us have a nice holiday weekend like this and live our lives. Starting late, but feeling good. Hey, Sarah Beth. Oh, not morning around here. It's 3:30. What time is it over there? Let me think. I guess, yeah, would it be morning for y'all over there? I have no idea. Which way do those time zones go? Yeah, it's late over there. All right. Well, so let's talk about what we're looking at on the screen here. This is the current state of the rebuild, which we are getting really close to being able to maybe consider putting this up and getting the new alpha out there, because a lot of the challenging tasks of the re-architecture have actually been completed, which is super exciting. I gotta have a conversation with the protocol folks to get a sense about how we're going to be dealing with the transition to the new technology, whether or not we're going to launch with the current state of Hypercore and then switch over later, or do we need to delay the launch of Citizen until that stuff is stable. Lots of options there, but in the meantime I've been spending a little bit of time thinking about Alpha 2 and thinking about what this app should be like. And so if you look at the screen here, you can see that I got a couple of new UI elements. And some of these are actually implemented, some of them are not. They're just me fleshing out ideas, so to speak. And the thing I've been thinking about is, so we have this mesh architecture, which is a really exciting architecture to be building a new social media network on. Anybody that's making a new social network nowadays, if you're not thinking decentralized, you're not thinking about the future. So that's a must-have as we move forward. But even with that, you still want to have a point of view about what your app is going to be like. You don't want to just do a straight clone. And so what I've been thinking about is how we can make this a fun place to be. That's kind of really what I would like more than anything else about Citizen, whatever we end up calling it. I'm still a little on the fence about the name Citizen, especially because there's another app already called Citizen. But the phrase that popped into my mind is to be a party and not a venue, which is a kind of a funny phrase. But the idea is that if it's a venue, it's a place that you go, that it's an unopinionated place that you can throw your own parties or you can have coffee or whatever, versus a party where a party you're expecting fun to be supplied when you get there, which means having a little more opinion within the application. And so some of that I'm kind of beginning to highlight here with, for instance, this right here, which actually is implemented, a current status thing, like the old school AIM days. Why not? It's kind of fun. So you go to somebody's profile, and you can see right at the top, oh, see, Alice somehow lost hers, so that's too bad. But there's mine. You got, what your current status is, what music you're listening to, what TV show are you watching. Why not? It's fun. And then over on the left side here, we have some tabs for switching between other things in the main feed. Things like CTZNs, which will be only for sharing cats, and things like shoutouts, which are for only saying nice things about people. And the statuses tab for saying a nice listing of all the people that you're following and what their current statuses are. Are these going to be long-standing features that are always a part of the app? Probably not. You know? CTZNs. Yeah, maybe it'll be there for a long time. Maybe it'll be something that we do for a little bit and then relegate to some kind of menu somewhere, or just remove entirely. The point being that it's less about, you're always going to have the main feed, but for the rest of the stuff, why not just kind of have some things that are not so serious, that are just fun little kind of mini games to bring into the experience where you can do something fun and interesting and not stake a whole lot in it. You know what I mean? Party, not a venue. So that's a lot what I'm kind of thinking about with this current thing is, with the status updates. Maybe that'll stick around, maybe it won't. It depends on, how much we kind of feel like, that's really core to it, or, it was a fun experiment, and then it's going to go. And I think it's something we kind of want to communicate early on. It's, we'll have seasonal features. I think this is a fun way to kind of direct things a little bit, to be a little less dry, and to try to, I think maybe one of the biggest problems I have, and a lot of people have with social media these days, is the negativity around the experience. Maybe if we could start to make ways of interacting with people that just don't invite negativity, we could start to have a better time together, I would like to think. So that's what I'm thinking about with this. So there are really kind of three unique things going on here. There's the current status stuff. There's these content tabs that are a little atypical, and then you got this stuff up here. With this, I'm thinking about bringing in the ability to create a post and give it a topic that is off the main feed, as a way to allow people to kind of deep dive into some topic that they figure probably most of their audience isn't interested in, but maybe some of them would be. Maybe it's a topic that's upsetting, something that's happening, in international politics. Maybe it's you're doing a devlog and you want to live stream that you're gardening, live tweet, live post you're gardening today. So you make a topic and you dump it in there, and so across the top you'll just see the topics that people you're following are currently doing. And that's all that would be. So you can kind of dive down into things, or you could post to the main feed. That's what that is. And one other thing I'm thinking about is bringing in kind of a robust content warning system that's, as you're making a post, you can check off if it's NSFW, you can check off if it's upsetting, or if it's satire, or if it's maybe even about politics, and give people on the receiving end a way to say, I want to see this kind of stuff, I don't want to see that kind of stuff. I'm here to have a good time, I'm really not looking for upsetting things, so I'm going to filter those out. I kind of think the overriding thing that we could accomplish with the application that we're building here is to make it a place where it's just less negative than social media tends to be. So that's my thesis for what we're putting together in terms of the Alpha 2 application experience. And there are a couple of things here that I'm going to spend today just kind of idly building out. Don't know which yet. Maybe I'll start with the topics thing, and maybe even the content warning thing. Who knows? I got this upvote on posts. I'm kind of thinking about maybe going instead to the equivalent of a retweet. And sort of simplifying the initial algorithm to, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't like about things like Twitter is that it is algorithm based, and they just kind of wish it would show who you're following and show what they retweet, and that's it. And I kind of think, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So we may just go for a straightforward retweet equivalent rather than some kind of upvoting thing, which is a little more, there's going to be some kind of algorithm and it's not really clear how it works. Let's not bother with that. Maybe let's kind of stick with a retweet thing. That said, the comments may actually be upvote and downvote based if we continue to do threaded comments like this, because it's a totally different requirement here. In this case, you're more in the vibe of you get this collection of comments that are on a specific post, and I think you really do want to have the best ones surface up to the top. So I think upvotes and downvotes will be how the comments work, but reactions and reposts will be what we do for the posts. So yeah, maybe we'll try to implement the kind of the repost mechanic today as well. Who knows? Whatever I'm feeling. It's going to be an easy day, not working too hard, and just kind of thinking about how we're going to make a happy place to be. Sound good, everybody? So, Let's start with, let's go ahead and implement the statuses thing. Might be a good thing to start with. Because that actually is implemented, though I am a little curious why Alice's status has disappeared on me, so let's look into that. So she does have statuses. And they show up there. And she looks at me. Interesting. So we got, oh, you know what? This might have to do with the idea that I put in about expiring statuses. That might be what that is. Because the way I baked it, I was thinking, well, you know, a status may not, you may not want to be permanent. Why don't we get some logging to take a look at what's happening? But the way that I built it was you set a status and then you say how long the status is supposed to be. I think maybe that's overcomplicating it now that I'm coming back to it and I'm surprised by the behavior. So, yeah, I think maybe, I don't know. It's an interesting idea. Let's confirm that that's what's happening here. $25, $30. Yeah, so they both expired. So that's what that was about. So that's actually working as expected, and I'm guessing the same thing is the case for, yep. So the current status expired, but the other two had no expiration date. So everybody have a good weekend, I hope. Any exciting things going on? All right. Read it down. Okay. Alright, so a little glitchy whenever it loads up. So let's try implementing the statuses view. We're going to eventually need to, I think we're going to need to namespace the usernames. Either that or we namespace the app paths. because we're currently just, you know, filling up the thing with hard-coded paths that, you know, will start to clash with usernames. So how do we want to deal with that? Let's make a to-do for ourselves to handle that. And you know what? It's time to break this up by week. So we've added our statuses, and now we will go to our front end and update this to include a statuses view. need. Yeah, it's time to listen to some of Bro's music. Jack's got a new track he's working on. I'm sure he won't mind if I play it a little prematurely. It's going along pretty well, I think. Is this editor big enough for y'all, or should I zoom it in a little more? I think it may be smaller than I normally do. Not sure. Oh, that's the new track he's got going. I think it's pretty cool. Alright, we'll play his own one. Michael. Good to see you. How's your weekend been, Michael? You having a decent Memorial Day weekend, I hope? Okay. So does Alice not currently have one? Nice. Living a little of that normal life, eh? Yeah, I went to my, first post-pandemic party on Saturday. It was weirdly normal. That was the best way to describe it. It's like, this doesn't feel right, but here I am. Yeah. Very much my experience. Staring at this, trying to visualize how this should look. I did. I had a wonderful time. It was really great to be back in the swing of things. Yeah, my brother kind of jumps around genres a lot with his music. Just whatever his fancy is, you know? Alright, so now how do we want to style it? Let's jump into our theme. Decisions, because I want it all. Gonna get it all. Let's try out the grid. See how it feels. Probably, man, probably. last long enough to get this thing launched, and I can die. It's not amazing, but I don't hate it. See how it feels with a little more content in there. I'll wait for this grooviness to stop before I do my new Nick cue.
CTZN.
Alright, what do I feel like doing next? Lazy day, lazy day. Introducing the whole topics idea. futzing with right now is an idea of not really content warnings, more like content labels. Because it's not all negative per se, but the idea of a feature like this would be a way to mark certain posts as being like possibly something you might want to filter out. You know what I mean? So each one of these categories would have the ability to be for somebody, you know, in their settings to say filter out if it's one of these things. It also kind of serves a dual purpose. Like, so NSFW or upsetting would probably, even if it's not, especially NSFW, like wouldn't show by default. You'd have to like, wouldn't show images by default probably. And then like, satire would probably like show that it's satire somewhere without necessarily hiding the content by default. That always struck me as one that would be a good idea to include, because sometimes people will make satire posts that it's not clear that it is, and it creates some confusion. So I'm kind of thinking, alright, so if we were to do something like this, what would the labels be that you stick on things? They don't all have to be serious. Like the nerding out thing, right? It's kind of like the premise here, it's the equivalent of being like, alright, I'm totally nerding out right now, but check this out. Or, alright, this is kind of off topic, this is kind of random, but here's the thing, right? Which in some ways is meant to, you know, get utility out of each of them for different reasons, but in some other ways it's also just kind of to normalize the use of these labels, like, it's not a big deal, you can use these things, and they don't have to be, you know, they would have whatever utility people apply to them. Anybody in the chat here have any thoughts about what labels you figure ought to get put on for something like that? Ignoring for the moment whether or not the feature is a good idea, just kind of, let's play with it here. What would we stick on that, you know? It's a thought. kind of more sure of the topic idea than I am of the content labels. So the content labels are an interesting thing. But I think the topic thing would be fun for folks. Because it really might give you some space to just, you know, sometimes you want to be able to just be like, you know, spent all day reworking the posts system to include topics, feeling good, but still needs work. That in the devlog. The end, you know? And you know it's going to have the devlog topic, and you kind of just feel secure in dumping stuff in there because it's not the main feed. So what I was asking earlier is, I'm playing with this idea of content labels, which is this bar right here of checkboxes that you can select. The idea being that they would serve a couple of different purposes. In some cases, in all cases, the idea would be that as an end user, you would have the ability to configure which ones you want to see and which ones you don't, so an automatic filtering kind of thing. And for something like NSFW, it would automatically hide images unless you click through. And then for, you know, everything else, it would just kind of include the label on there, which for like satire could be important so that people know sometimes. Sometimes people get confused about whether or not something is satire. And so what I was kind of wondering is like if entertaining this idea, what content labels should be there? Yeah, go ahead, Nita. It's like a content label isn't an automatic filter out by any stretch. And the idea is, yeah, you know, people have a little bit of choice. So there's a real difference between hashtags and the topic idea that I have. Hashtags are a way to optionally filter down. Okay, I'll respond to each of you. I'll start with Nada. So hashtags are a way to filter down from the main feed, and topics are a way to, as a publisher, explicitly post into a separate feed. So in Twitter and really most apps, whenever you use a hashtag, you don't expect when you use a hashtag, you don't expect to have it like only show up in the hashtag feed, right? You expect still, even when you have a hashtag, you expect it to show up in the main feed. The purpose of a topic is basically to make subfeeds. And so if I were to use the devlog topic, then it would show up here, kind of like that right there, as opposed to going straight into people's feed. And you know, then they could choose, oh, okay, I want to see what's in Paul's devlog. So it's different than a hashtag. Now the thing about the content labels and the reason that I'm choosing some, and you know, I can imagine a world in which you could do custom ones, but actually it's a usability thing on this. Just trying to quickly make it convenient and simple to pick something that you think is accurate for what you're doing here, and less connected to, you know, like a topic is a free-form user selection, you know, user input thing. These are meant to be something which is just a simple tool to be able to quickly mark something. So it's less about picking all possible labels and more about just making something that kind of fits. I don't know if y'all caught what I was saying before, but we're doing a party, not a venue. Which means that we're going to allow opinion to exist in this thing. Really, the question I just have more is along the lines of whether or not the content labels will end up being good usability. I think it could be. Just a little filter control somewhere. Well, we have topics. Bear that in mind. Content labels and topics serve two very different purposes. Yeah, the way that I think doesn't fulfill what I would like is that the way that Twitter's doing it has more to do with giving you a way to like explore content outside of your personal network. And this topic idea is more about being able to publish to your network with a little less anxiety about when you have one feed, you're really constrained by kind of considering what you're putting into the main feed. You're less liberated in terms of just posting whatever you like. So the purpose of a topic is really to kind of let you create a second space, a second feed really quickly to dump in something that maybe you're like, probably most people don't want to talk about this on the main, but if they're interested, they'll see the topic up there and they can opt into it. Yeah, it doesn't work with hashtags though, because like if it's hashtags, yeah, like if I publish under #devlog, then it wouldn't show up in the main feed. Instead, #devlog would show up in the topics across the top, and I could click into it as a consumer to see it. So it might actually, to give some more obvious clarity, use a slightly clunkier word. But one which is a little more clear in some ways. Subfeed. That would be the idea, one topic proposed. Probably the biggest concern I have at the moment is just that, first of all, topics behaving a little novelly, so it'll take people half a second to figure it out. But probably the bigger problem is that content labels, the off-topic, nerding out, satire, stuff like that, sort of conflicts conceptually. So having both of them there might be a little bit of an overload for a new user to wrap their head around why one exists and the other versus the other. That's kind of what I'm thinking too, is that it's just a little bit much at the moment. So then you could think, yeah, and I mean, again, the reason, there are two reasons that I have the predefined things with the content labels. The content labels are designed to be like additional filtering tools, number one. They're not really meant to be topics. And number two, they, you know, I like the UX of being able to just kind of write up your post quickly, tap, 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 and you're all set. So I guess the kind of the question is whether or not, yeah, which is fine. The CTZN thing, you know, it doesn't have to be for everybody. You know, there's going to be stuff like the CTZNs and the shoutouts and the statuses. They're just going to be, that kind of stuff is different than thinking about how to do the post, because the post will always be there. But CTZNs, shoutouts, statuses, they're like fashion. They're going to come in for a season and leave later. Not everybody's going to have a cat, so at some point maybe we'll add dogzens, and then maybe they'll both go away at some point. It's just a toy, you know? So those don't need to fit for everybody. And the but with the posts and stuff like that, I'm really just more kind of thinking about what's going to make this as obvious and straightforward. I disagree. I think we ought to have some fun. I mean, if you're talking about this in particular, again, my concern with this is not a matter of simplicity or anything like that, more just a question of, see, I completely disagree. I think we should. I think that we should have opinion. I think we should have fun. I think that that doesn't mean it can be confusing, and that's my concern about both the topics and the content labels. If it's too confusing, then you know it's not working. But I see no reason not to inject a little life into things, and that's my thesis for how we should go about this. But the topics and the content labels, I mean, should we merge them together? Should we remove one and not the other? That's the other question I'm curious about with this right now. I find hashtags to be pretty bland in practice. Yeah, I mean, maybe topics could be seasonal, but like, and I feel like hashtags. The thing about hashtags is that, like, I don't know if it, you know, they just don't feel like they accomplish that much. I very, very, very rarely ever use a hashtag or in a post or click on a hashtag. I always find it kind of obnoxious that when they are in a post, it always feels a little bit like, nah, not necessarily. I mean, there's always opinion being asserted here. You know, there's not, like, the artifice is not connected to freedom or not. That's a MacGuffin. That's the wrong way to look at it. It's more about, like, you know, if you, the topic design that I'm talking about, you could argue it makes you more free to be able to dump, you know, brain dump into obscure things because you can silo off into a little subfeed, you know. There's more to it than just there's more structure to the idea than that. And really, both of these are sort of we're looking for ways to make things nice and easy for folks to both feel free to post about what they want to post about, but also as readers to have the freedom not to see things that they really don't want to see. Which is the area where I feel like there's a lot of conflict. Oh, also hashtags they're always a little bit, they have a little bit of a vibe of like, almost like the same kind of negative feeling you get about somebody who's intentionally presents themselves as an influencer, you know? Like, I want to make sure that my content gets seen by people. There's something about it that's the wrong vibe, in my opinion, in practice. And whereas with the topics thing, it's really more about giving you freedom to nerd out in your own little corner. Of course, it's possible the biggest problem with the idea of topics is that if they get used a lot, then this listing will start to just move too quickly to ever even get caught by people. So the decision about what topics to show up there can end up being kind of difficult. In which case, it's possible that the topics that you dump into just don't get seen by people that follow you. Like, think about this, like you retweet something that's inside of a topic, now anybody that's following you has that topic added to the listing up top. That could pretty quickly crowd out. Alright, so suppose we didn't do topics. Instead we did content labels. Generally speaking, if we do something which is kind of the sub-community idea, moving from what we were doing with communities, that would be the idea. It's, you know, what I'm doing with topics is similar to what we were doing with communities. It's creating specific content spaces, but without the moderators. So it's still just leveraging the yeah, so you could do it that way, like, well, okay, let's say you create a topic, right? Like, let's say you do that. You create a topic, and then you post inside of it. Do your followers then see the topic? Like, does it automatically, you create a topic, I press new topic, set it up, and now it's created in there. And so now, do other people see that up in the listing there automatically? Or is it more like you create a topic and the listing up top here is like things that you choose to opt into? So like you're curating your set of topics that you're interested in. Because if you just kind of pick a topic arbitrarily whenever you make a post, then the topics are sort of being created on demand and they're automatically showing up at the top bar, versus something that you kind of explicitly curate as a reader. So, you know, you decide at some point that there's a topic that you're interested in, and so you add it to the top of your feed. Yeah. I think that's the only way to deal with the fact that otherwise this listing would be really chaotic. Like, I like it being immediate in a way because it kind of gets into like what's trending. Right. Yeah, there's no problem with that. It's just like how many user actions are involved between a new topic and like it showing up at the top there. And if you automate it as opposed to curate it, if it's automatically showing up at the top, I think what would probably happen is that it would all move too quickly. So posting to a topic would be kind of like a death sentence to your post, because like nobody would ever end up seeing it, because there'd be no longevity to those content selections. But then if you curate it, right? Yeah. So kind of like a social subreddit thing. That makes sense. So kind of literally sub-feeds that are social as opposed to subreddits, which are really kind of forums, traditional forums. I don't know if, you know, if you create a topic, I don't know about putting rules on it. I mean, you might be able to set some subjective rules on it, but those probably wouldn't get shared. Just the existence of the topic would get shared, so that when somebody browses around, they'll see, you know, that it exists. So if we did it like that, then a more appropriate rendering of this would be more like right. Of course, that'll all still be on the basis of following, so it'd be kind of more like muting. Yeah, I'm thinking kind of for our initial, this is definitely one in the realm of keeping it simple. I think for the initial release, we won't do any kind of, we probably won't do a trust graph sort of thing exactly. We'll just do this traditional, you follow people and you do retweets. Like kind of de-algorithmify, get away from the algorithms on the main feed for the initial release. Yeah. I think that'll be worth the effort. I do think people want that. I think I want it. You don't want it to be something that ends up being kind of like it's there and nobody really uses it, but I don't know. It could end up being a great feature. Kind of thing where you, again, just feel a little more liberated to create more posts, retweet more, things like that. Share more sides of yourself, be a little more multifaceted. All right, well, I'm going to spend some time working on that off stream. So thanks for joining me, everybody, and catch you whenever I start the stream tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend, and I'll see you later.
Citizen.